The National Desk, America's News Now.
As we come on the air, no deal on debt, and Congress is going home, and the country is left waiting as the clock ticks down.
I sat down with the president February 1st. We passed the bill in April, long before they ever set the deadline was June 1st. Republicans have done everything they can.
Another state governor signs a restrictive abortion bill into law, but it brings backlash from within his own party.
I can't tell you how disappointed I am to see South Carolina and other states like Florida and elsewhere, North Carolina, where they're mandating that miscarriages are reported.
And the Supreme Court limits the administration again. What's next in the battle over wetlands? Live from the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. We're happy you're with us. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and right now the U.S. House is in recess. Some lawmakers are on their way home, and there is no agreement on the debt limit. Negotiators say progress has been made, but no deal is imminent.
We're at a sensitive phase with sensitive issues that remain. Those sensitive issues are the thorniest issues that we've been discussing.
When these negotiations happen, both sides have to understand that neither side is going to get everything that they want.
If a deal is struck, Speaker McCarthy said he would recall all members, but he would not remove a 72-hour window to review any bill, a provision he agreed to be elected Speaker. Now, 35 members of the House Freedom Caucus, in a new letter to McCarthy, are asking for more provisions to be added to negotiations, including border security measures. Washington Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal say these kinds of negotiating tactics are the reason there has been no deal.
Let's make it clear that anyone who thinks that this is normal, it's not normal. Republicans are using this as a hostage-taking move because they couldn't get these cuts that they're trying to get in during the regular negotiations and appropriations session.
With Thursday marking exactly 1 week before the U.S. could default on its debt, according to an estimate from the Treasury, a new warning from one of the top 3 crediting rating agencies means there could be economic consequences even without a default. The National Desk Atra Elnishar explains from Capitol Hill.
The potential for a repeat of 2011's debt ceiling fallout getting more real. Fitch Ratings placing the United States' AAA credit on Rating Watch negative, something House Republicans and the White House are reacting to.
There's no reason to default. There's no reason to lose our credit rating.
Underscores that there are real consequences to the getting up to the brink as House Republicans have pushed us.
Fitch putting debt ceiling brinkmanship at the top of its list of key rating drivers. The firm says it expects a deal will ultimately be reached before a default occurs, but they say, quote, risks have risen that the debt limit will not be raised or suspended before the X date, and consequently that the government could begin to miss payments on some of its obligations. A credit downgrade would cause damage similar to S&P's move in 2011 that came even after a debt ceiling deal was reached at the last minute. Interest rates could rise even higher, making borrowing costs for certain mortgages or student loans more expensive. Panic on Wall Street could mean retirements and other savings take a hit. Brian Deese, who recently stepped away from his post running the White House Economic Council, says it can take years for the economy to recover.
Even if they're able to go up to or close to the X date and resolve this, doing it at the last minute has consequences.
Each side indicating they're no longer thinking about the timeline in terms of days.
Every hour matters. That's why the White House has to become very serious about this.
You've already got the threat of a downgrade, and we've already starting to see some disruptions in the Treasury market. So yes, I think every hour counts at this point.
Now, Washington does have until next Thursday before the first potential default date. But when you consider the fact that it would take about 2 days or so to write this legislation, the timeline gets a lot tighter. Then factor in, as you mentioned, Speaker McCarthy bound to that rule of 72 hours of consideration before a bill is held for a vote. And then it's got to pass the other chamber, the Senate, and then make its way all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue to the president's desk.
And perhaps complicating things for the Speaker, Antra, a group of Republicans today, they urged him to hold the line on their spending cut demands. Fill us in.
Right. You were talking earlier about the House Freedom Caucus. We've got 35 members, the most conservative members of the Republican Party in the House, calling on Speaker McCarthy to not only follow through on all of the items in the Limit, Save, Grow Act that they passed weeks ago, but they actually want changes to it now. They want to separate some of the cuts to IRS funding and pulling back COVID aid that would, they say, extend that X date. They also want to add border security measures, and they want to cancel funding for a new FBI headquarters. They're also making demands that Janet Yellen, quote unquote, show her work as to why June 1st is when that worst case scenario would occur. I should note anyone can go on the Treasury's website and see the bills that are due on June 1st. And there's been many analyses by third parties about how much cash the Treasury would have on hand at that date. Now, the politics of this, McCarthy does not need all 35 of those members, or any of them really, to vote for any legislation, because he could get Democrats to sort of fill their spots if the bipartisan deal is reached. However, politically for McCarthy, he needs their support just in general to hold on to his speakership. Dee Dee.
Right, and just that tight timeline that we are watching. Atra, thank you. 74 House Democrats joining all but one Republican in voting to officially classify all fentanyl substances as a Schedule I drug. The HALT Fentanyl Act, backed by the White House, passed 289 to 133. Right now, only some fentanyl-related substances qualify. The bill needs to pass the Senate before heading to President Biden's desk. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will skip an official kickoff event in Florida for his presidential run and will hit the campaign trail instead. Starting Tuesday, DeSantis will be on a 4-day tour through 12 cities in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, revisiting states he spoke in before his announcement. The founder of the far-right extremist group, the Oath Keepers, was sentenced to 18 years in prison today for his role in the January 6 Capitol attack. 58-year-old Stuart Rhodes was convicted in November of seditious conspiracy for coordinating a plot to prevent the transition to President Joe Biden after the 2020 election. Rhodes' lawyers had argued for a 16-month sentence, the time he's already spent behind bars. They say they intend to appeal the conviction. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster signed a controversial 6-week abortion ban today. The law reinstates restrictions that were overturned by the state Supreme Court when Roe v. Wade was struck down. The court said it violated the right to privacy. Now, under the new law, doctors could face felony charges for performing abortions. There are exceptions for fatal fetal anomalies, the patient's life and health, rape and incest up to 12 weeks. But even some Republicans believe the new reporting requirements for sexual assault have gone too far.
We need to show, as conservatives, because I'm a pro-life Republican, show that we are pro-women and pro-life. And that means not requiring draconian reporting requirements for women and girls who are victims of rape, victims of incest, or who've had miscarriages, or a fatal fetal abnormality. That's none of the government's, they don't need to know that information. It's none of their business.
And Oregon Governor Tina Kotek is working with Republican state senators to end a 3-week walkout that has kept the Oregon Senate from conducting official business. Democrats hold 17 of the Oregon Senate's 30 seats, but the chamber needs at least 20 lawmakers present to hold any vote. Republican Senate leader Tim Knopp said his colleagues will only return on the final day of the legislative session, June 25th, to pass substantially bipartisan budget bills. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee is sending 100 National Guard troops to the southern border. They'll get there by the end of the month and will assist in patrolling security and road and route clearance. A little less than 5,000 migrants a day they have come into the U.S. since Title 42 expired. But Governor Lee thinks the federal government needs to do more. Lee said in a statement, quote, "America continues to face an unprecedented border crisis that threatens our nation's security and the safety of Tennesseans. The federal government owes Americans a plan to secure our country, and in the meantime, states continue to answer this important call to service." Governor Lee sent 50 troops in December of 21 to help deter drug trafficking. The U.S. Pacific territory of Guam is looking at weeks of cleanup and recovery after Typhoon Mawar swept through the island with the force of a Category 4 hurricane, the strongest typhoon to hit the island since 2002. It ripped through and flooded homes. You get a sense of that here, left most of the territory without power or water. The worst of the storm is over and no deaths were reported, but the typhoon has gained strength and is now heading towards the Philippines and Taiwan. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration released a hurricane season forecast today, saying it will be near normal, but with a lot of uncertainty stemming from a likely El Nino combined with warm waters. The agency predicts there will be between 12 and 17 named storms, 5 to 9 hurricanes, and 1 to 4 major hurricanes this year. The administrators are also announcing plans to launch new modeling and computing tools to improve forecasting. The Biden administration is taking a big step towards fighting anti-Semitism, led by the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, who is Jewish. The first of its kind, the four-pillar initiative, focuses on increasing awareness, improving safety, countering discrimination, and building solidarity. Biden is calling on Congress and all Americans to fight discrimination against people who are Jewish.
We must say clearly and forcefully that anti-Semitism and all forms of hate and violence have no place in America. And silence is complicity, and it cannot remain silent. I will not remain silent. You should not either.
Coming up next, House Republicans want FBI Director Christopher Wray to confirm their suspicions of Biden. Will he play ball? And more lawsuits are filed against big tech. Why this trend is growing nationwide. Plus, it's the beginning of summer vacation season. We take a look at the millions expected to travel over this weekend alone. We're back in 90 seconds. FBI Director Christopher Wray and House Oversight Chairman James Comer are set to meet as early as next week. This all comes as Comer is investigating President Biden's business dealings. Comer said he'd hold Wray in contempt of Congress if the FBI does not comply with the subpoena to hand over an internal document. According to Comer, a whistleblower says the document shows Biden being involved in a criminal scheme with a foreign national when he was vice president. The White House has said the claim is a politically motivated attack. The U.S. economy is slowing down. It grew at a 1.3% annual rate from January through March. Look at that, according to the Commerce Department. Now, the newly released number marks a significant deceleration from the 3% growth last summer and 2.5% this past winter. This, experts say, is because the interest rate hikes are taking effect as the country continues to deal with high inflation. The number of Americans applying for jobless claims rose slightly last week. Labor Department data shows jobless claims rose by 4,000 to 229,000. The 4-week average of jobless claims is unchanged from the previous week. Overall, 1.8 million people collected unemployment benefits just last week. Now, analysts say it's a sign that layoffs are accelerating, but companies are still reluctant to let go of employees in the tight labor market. School districts nationwide are suing social media companies over their potential negative impacts on young people. The Clarksville-Montgomery school system in Nashville, Tennessee is one of the latest to join the movement. Attorneys representing the district are suing Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Google, WhatsApp, and YouTube, citing the damages and growing mental health crisis among students. TikTok has been under scrutiny, significant scrutiny. We'll discuss findings about American support of a ban on the app.
Montana Governor Greg Gianforte signed a bill last week banning TikTok from operating in the state over concerns about data privacy and the platform's ties to China. And with the fact-check team, the Montana legislature introduced this bill back in February. That led to months of debate. But, Courtney, what does the ban look like now that the governor signed it?
Eugene, this really is uncharted territory because Montana is the first U.S. state to totally ban TikTok. The text of the law is pretty short, but starting on January 1st, 2024, if you're anywhere in the state, you won't be able to find it on mobile app stores like Apple or Google, for example. And TikTok could face a fine of up to $10,000 a day every single time someone accesses or downloads it, and so could Apple and Google.
Yeah, lots of money there, but it's important to note that the penalties don't apply to users of the app. It just applies to TikTok and those companies offering it for download. But how are they going to enforce this?
It's tough to say. Montana's Attorney General points to the technology used to restrict online sports gambling as a way to get the job done. But cybersecurity experts say that there's no real incentive other than avoiding the fines for companies to comply. And app stores don't have the ability to geofence apps state by state, so the responsibility would fall on TikTok to determine where it can and can't operate.
Meantime, TikTok has filed a lawsuit citing First Amendment concerns, among other things, and a group of influencers have also filed a similar suit against Montana. It's an interesting topic for sure. For more on this topic, including links to the fact-check team's sources of information, you want to scan the QR code you see on your screen or visit us at thenationaldesk.com.
An Indianapolis doctor facing disciplinary action for giving an abortion to a 10-year-old rape victim from Ohio was in court today. Indiana's Attorney General accusing Dr. Caitlin Bernard of violating state law by not reporting the girl's abuse to authorities and violating federal patient privacy laws by telling a newspaper about her treatment. Bernard's lawyers maintain that she didn't release information about the girl that would break privacy laws and that the girl's rape was already being investigated by Ohio authorities. Day that she followed reporting requirements, her license could be suspended or revoked. New today, a Supreme Court decision limits the federal government's ability to address water pollution. The justices ruling that the Environmental Protection Agency cannot regulate certain wetlands under the Clean Water Act. It's a major blow to the EPA's authority. The White House says they are now determining next steps to take. A new report says solar investments are expected to attract more than $1 billion a day in 2023. According to the International Energy Agency, this will be the first time solar investments will be more than oil production investments. IEA officials say the cost of clean energy is getting cheaper, and more governments are seeing clean energy as a long-term solution to energy security. The report also says fossil fuel investment spending is more than double the levels needed in the agency's goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Microsoft announced it's bringing the power of artificial intelligence to its Windows 11 platform. In a blog post, the company says its Windows Copilot has the ability to rewrite, summarize, or explain content for users to help them complete tasks. Users can also ask it a range of questions similar to the Bing chat system. Microsoft describes the Windows Copilot sidebar as simple to use, saying it acts as a personal assistant. Windows Copilot will be available in preview for Windows 11 in June. As we see more companies jumping into the competition to develop their own AI, some are attempting to pump the brakes on the industry to avoid unintended consequences. The National Desk, Janae Bowens, explains their concerns.
Right now, all the tech companies are controlling us, and the people have not spoken back.
Duke University computer science professor Cynthia Rudin warns that we shouldn't wait to see how far AI can go before taking action.
If we don't sort it out now, those tech companies are going to get entrenched to the point where there's no way out of it.
Washington is starting to pay attention, but one lawmaker warns they're already behind the curve.
We do move far too slowly on a number of issues in Congress.
California Representative Ted Lieu is introducing a bill that would create a commission to make recommendations to Congress on what types of AI to regulate and how. The issue is gaining momentum in Capitol Hill, with the Senate Judiciary Committee holding a hearing last week to assess the threats. The subcommittee chairman giving this opening statement.
Too often, we have seen what happens when technology outpaces regulation.
Completely fabricated by AI.
This is not the future we want.
That voice was not mine. The words were not mine. And the audio was an AI voice cloning software trained on my floor speeches.
But University of California Irvine law professor Dan Burke argues whatever regulation Congress lands on will likely be outpaced by technology, minimizing its effectiveness.
Tomorrow it's going to look different, and whatever laws they enacted are probably going to be the wrong laws.
Now, there is bipartisan support for regulation, and Congressman Michael McCall says we've seen the harm that this technology can do in authoritarian countries. Adding the U.S. needs to, quote, prioritize the development of artificial intelligence that is safe, secure, and supplements human ability to ensure this rapidly advancing technology is used for good. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens for the National Desk.
The National Desk is here to help answer your questions about AI. Be sure to watch the National Desk Town Hall on What You Need to Know. It streams on thenationaldesk.com tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. Coming up, a heroic dog makes a startling discovery almost at a tremendous cost. That story and more on Pulse of America in 90 seconds. We're taking the pulse of America, starting with a fentanyl bust in Everett, Washington, that almost took the life of the hero canine who found the drug.
This picture from undercover agents gives you an idea of the magnitude of this major drug bust. Cops say it shows the ringleader of this operation walking with his young son directly to a drug deal.
They move in here, they get somebody to move in here, and they got their connection, then they all come to wherever that person is.
Law enforcement tell Como News they used several confidential informants to learn about this operation. On May 11th, neighbors at this complex were shocked as a swarm of cops moved in.
They was all in the black and white SUVs. And I'm like, something fun is going on, but I ain't going to check it out.
The result, 100 pounds of fentanyl plus cocaine and meth. Neighbors here say drugs have been an issue for a long time.
There's ways to sneak it around, but, you think something would have been seen before it happened.
Those drugs were so dangerous that this drug-sniffing dog named Sully was overcome with fumes and almost died of a drug overdose. He ended up being okay after receiving 4 doses of an anti-drug medication.
We are full-time RVers. We travel around the United States. We live in each city for a month at a time, and we volunteer somewhere every single day.
It was a journey that started after becoming empty nesters, and having only been married for 2 years, it's a way to do what they love while growing closer together.
It was almost instant that we looked at each other and said, like, we can volunteer full-time. That's what we came up with. And so that's when kind of Marriage on a Mission was born.
So the Hayes sold their big 2-story, 2-garage suburban home, their vehicles, and 95% of their belongings in Texas and hit the road, traveling to Pensacola, Florida, Memphis, Tennessee, and now in Columbia, South Carolina through May.
Believe me, family and friends thought we were nuts. We were crazy. We had lost our mind. Where did y'all come up with this ridiculous idea?
City leaders and Parlier Unified students rolled up their sleeves to color a crosswalk. More than art, a tribute in honor of a former classmate, and hopefully prevent another tragedy near Parlier Junior High School.
This is a test to see if it works.
February 10th, Fernanda Perez Aldama, a 7th grader at Parlier Junior High, was hit and killed while walking home in a crosswalk right next to the school.
In any town, and especially a small town, you know, where everybody knows each other, you know, the whole town grieves. So we're all in mourning over the sad tragedy that happened at this particular crosswalk.
The city manager says a budget request was immediately made after the tragic accident to make the crosswalk more visible.
It's a new innovative idea that our city planning development team came up with, and it's having the kids, engaging the kids, getting involved, letting them know, let the community know that we are doing things to help improve the safety of our kids and community.
We're going to have more news coming up. We're back in 90 seconds. Flying for the holiday weekend is likely to break a pandemic-era record. According to the TSA, they expect to screen about 10 million travelers between Friday and Monday, a 14% increase from last year and slightly more than 2019. AAA predicting about 37 million Americans will drive at least 50 miles from home this weekend, about 2 million more from last year, but still below pre-pandemic levels. That's going to do it for us. Join us again tonight at 10 Eastern for more on the National Desk.